Hi, this is a demonstration to show you how you can use a Debian Live image to make use of a computer. First of all, we want to go to a particular web page. We want to go to power.arc.losreals.edu, and we want to go through this list here on the left hand side and move down until you find Dr. Tech's Debian Live CD. This is a link to a rather huge file. You can look at the URL at the bottom of the screen. It will download a file called deblive deblive.iso. Once you get that file, you want to use that file to burn a DVD so that we can use the DVD to start up a computer. If you're using Windows, you can use Windows' own ability to burn a DVD, or you can also use a program called Infra Recorder. So let's go ahead and take a look at Infra Recorder, which is an open source software that is available for Windows. And you can go straight to the download section and install the software on your computer. You probably want to use either of the installer. The first one is for 32-bit platforms. The second one is for 64-bit platforms. It's entirely up to you to decide which one you want to use depending on your version of Windows. Alright, so assuming you have burned a CD from the image that you download from power.arc.losreals.edu, and remember, it is the Debian Live CD that you want to download and not the installer CD. It is the second last one from the list. Once you have the CD burned, you can start up your computer. The cool thing about this Live CD is that you don't need an internal hard drive. In other words, this will work just fine even if your computer does not have any internal hard drive. You do need to have a CD-ROM drive. And later on, we'll also talk about a technique where even a CD-ROM drive is not even needed in order to use this live image. But for now, this is the easiest way to do it, so we'll assume that we have a DVD burned already. Let me get rid of the browser here. And what I'm going to do next is to use a virtual machine to simulate the effect of booting from the CD. And you also need to make sure that your PC has at least 512 megs of RAM. A gig would be nice, but 512 is the minimum. So I'm going to configure let me show you the command line to start up the virtual machine here. KVM is a virtual machine engine. -M512 means that I want to allocate 512 megabytes of RAM for the virtual machine. And the only thing I have to specify here is the CD-ROM device, and I will set the CD-ROM device to deblive.iso, which I have downloaded a little bit earlier. Now obviously, when you're doing this on an actual computer, you don't have to do this. All you have to do is to put the CD or the DVD into this DVD tray and reboot the computer. Your computer does not need to have any pre-existing operating system. If you do have one, it doesn't really hurt it anyway. So either way is fine. So let me start this virtual machine. And your computer will start up with a different screen until we get to this part. This part should still be the same regardless of your operating system. You can see from the title here, this is QEMU, which means we are still looking at a virtual machine, but the content of this is what you should see on your screen anyway. We can select the first two items. It doesn't have to be the first one. You can also select the second one. In fact, it is probably better to run the second one, especially if you have used a live image before. So we'll start with live non-persistent. And you will see a whole lot of messages as the system starts up. In other words, this is basically what you should be seeing when your computer starts with the DVD that you burned earlier. I do have one warning. If you are using any NVIDIA chipset, you probably will have to do this a little bit differently. And we'll talk about how to do this if you're using an NVIDIA card in your system. So for now, we are assuming that we are not using an NVIDIA card. And at some point right now, the system will boot into its GUI format. And let me expand on the virtual screen so we can see the entire screen here. When you log in, the default user has a password of user. Obviously, this is not very secure, but since you can't really write, no one can write anything back to the DVD device, so at this point it is not too much of a security concern. Alright, the first thing it will do once you log in as user is it will ask you, how do you want to set up the panel? Use default config is fine. And the system is now up and running. This is different from Windows, but it has all the, it has many of the elements of Windows, many of the applications that you want to use with Windows, and something that is a little bit in addition to that. Now, I'm assuming this computer has no hard drive. In other words, what I'm doing here, you can also do to any PC that has no hard drives. The first thing we want to do is to take a look at the application menu. And you can see under the application menu, we have different items. For now, we can ignore terminal emulator because that's a command line interface. And it's very useful, but for the most part, a beginning user does not need to use it. So we'll move down to settings. And under settings, we have a lot of options. You can customize a lot of aspects of your computer, including the display. Right now I'm running at 1024 by 768, but you can change that. The system should automatically detect the resolution of your monitor as long as it is a more modern monitor that has a VESA or VESA capability. So for the most part, you don't need to deal with it. You can play with the other stuff, just do not play with gparted. That's one program that can do damage to your hard drive if you already have a hard drive in the system. Well, not damage the hard drive physically, but it can make you lose the content on the hard drive. So we'll save that for later. Accessories, we have all kinds of interesting stuff here. GTK Wiimote Whiteboard is a very interesting application. What it does is it will turn a Nintendo Wiimote into a whiteboard engine. As long as you have Bluetooth capability on your computer, you can now turn any projection TV or any big screen TV or any monitor, including a laptop computer, into a interactive whiteboard. So that's pretty useful. Mousepad is about the same as Notepad in Windows. It is quite useful. It's a very simple-minded editor, but you can use it without any training. If you know how to use Notepad, you know how to use Mousepad. Screenshot is a tool that allows you to take a screenshot of the entire screen or a portion of it. So it can come in handy sometimes. Thunder File Manager is your basically it's the same as a Windows Explorer. It allows you to navigate the file system and locate files, and if you double click on the file, it will open up and stuff like that. Alright. Under development here, we have Scratch, which is a very interesting program for beginning programmers or people who are learning how to program. Composer is an HTML editor, so you can use it to compose web pages. Under education, we have Stellarium. Stellarium is kind of like your own personal planetarium. In fact, I can just go ahead and start it. Maybe it's not starting because my emulated graphics card does not support some of the features. Let's move on to Internet, which is more useful. We have a selection of at least two web browsers. The first one is Google Chrome. If you like Google Chrome, it is already pre-installed into the live DVD. If you don't like that, you can also use Iceweasel, which is a clone of Firefox. So Iceweasel is about the same as Firefox. If you know how to use Firefox, you know how to use Iceweasel. FileZilla is a file transfer client. You can understand FTP, SFTP, and also SCP. So it's pretty useful for transferring files, and you don't need to use a command line to do it. This is all GUI based. Under multimedia, we have Audacity, which is a program that you can use to record, mix, and also process audio tracks. MPlayer is a media player. You can play audio files as well as video files. Basically anything that is not DRM'd or anything that does not have digital right management, you can use MPlayer to play it. SMPlayer is closely related to MPlayer. It just has a better skin. It's a better interface to use it, but it's basically the same thing. You also have Mixer that allows you to control the audio aspects of your computer. Movie Player, I don't use it too often because MPlayer or SMPlayer does a pretty good job doing it already. And the other programs are useful, but they're not generally that useful to begin with. So I'm just going to move on to the next tab here into the Office category. In the Office category, the first one is a dictionary, which obviously can be quite useful. And I just demonstrate by looking up the word dictionary itself. And you can see that it has a pretty good definition, and you can do all this without access to the internet. It does not need to look up anything on the internet. I take it back, it does, because I'm selecting dictionary server here, so it's actually using the internet to find the definitions. So I apologize for speaking a little bit earlier. FreeMind is an interesting program for people who need to write like longer articles, or people who just want to organize their thoughts. This program allows you to use bubbles to connect ideas. For instance, if you want to write an article about open source software, so this becomes the root item, and when you press the plus key, oops, I take it back. You say right click it, and then you can say new child node. And now you can say, okay, what do you want to say about open source? Okay, what it is. And then you can add another child. In addition to what it is, you can also mention advantages. Oops, let's type advantages. You can right click and insert new child node. In addition to advantages, you might want to list well-known open source products. Okay, so you can do this, as many times as you want, and the program will automatically adjust the child node so that everything will fit on the screen nicely. Now, let's just say that within well-known open source products, you want to list some particular items. You can add its own child node, so this can nest, and we can say Apache, and we can say Linux. You can also use the shortcut key. If you press the insert key on your keyboard, it is the same as right click and then say add new child node. Apache, Linux, LibreOffice, which we'll see later on, and so on. And then within each item, you can add additional items. So I'm just going to press the insert key again when LibreOffice is selected, and we can now start to capture ideas that we want to include in the article, and we can say used to be OpenOffice, and then we can say mostly Microsoft Office format compatible, and so on. So you can see this is a really nifty tool for anyone who needs to organize thoughts. it's really nice because it automatically reformats everything so that everything would look nice. Alright, so this is just a quick demonstration of FreeMind. I'm going to close this without saving it. And moving on to some of the really useful applications. The next one is LibreOffice. Now, LibreOffice itself doesn't really do anything because it is just the base of everything else. LibreOffice base is kind of like Microsoft Office Access. It's a database front end. You can use it to create queries and forms and stuff like that. LibreOffice Calc is a spreadsheet program. It is, for the most part, format compatible with Microsoft Excel files. Draw allows you to do freehand drawing that are scalable. In other words, it is not a paint program. It is more like Adobe Illustrator or a similar product. Impress is kind of like PowerPoint. It's a presentation software. It can open PowerPoint files, including the latest ones with the PPTX extension. Math here, it allows you to enter equations. So it's kind of like equation editor of Microsoft Office. And the last one is Writer, which is kind of like Microsoft Word, and it is also compatible, or it can open up Microsoft Word documents like docx extension files. And then we have some other random stuff here. For the most part, unless you like to design PCBs and design your own circuits, these are not really that useful to you. And then under System, we have a whole bunch of stuff that you can use to control the settings of your system. And obviously, some of these have quite interesting names. Alright, well, let's go ahead and use one of the Office programs. And we'll start with, let's start with Writer, which is kind of like Microsoft Word. And you can see the interface of Writer is similar to Microsoft Word prior to the 2007 revision. In other words, 2003 and earlier, they have the same classic menu system before they move on to the ribbon system. And the way these menu items are organized is pretty much the same as Microsoft Word before they move on to the ribbon format. Except for one or two places, it's very. If you know how to use Microsoft Word before or in version 2003, you know how to use LibreOffice Writer. Okay. Well, at this point, I hate to say it, but there's no way to save any information because this is running off of a CD-ROM, remember, or DVD, and you cannot save anything onto a DVD. You can do web browsing. I mean, you can certainly do a lot of things already. So you can go onto the internet using Google Chrome. And if you put all your resources in the cloud, this may be all you want or all you need to do any work. Because with Google Chrome, you can go to your Google Docs or some other cloud-based resources and just start to do work over there. In other words, I can just type google.com, and since I have not signed in yet, I cannot go to Google Docs. But if I had signed in already, I can go to Google Documents and access my documents that way. If you want to save any information locally, it would seem that you can save it. So do not let this confuse you. So let's just go to Writer again. And let's just say this is a sample document. And I'll click File, Save. And it looks like it's letting you save to a folder. The home folder is called /home/user. So I'll just name the file as letter to grandma. And when you save the file, you can also select a format. In other words, you can select a format like Microsoft Word 6.0 or Microsoft Word 97. If I remember correctly, it also supports the later ones right here. Microsoft Word 2007, 2010 XML. So if you want to send this document to somebody else who uses a newer version of Microsoft Word, select this format and then click Save. It will give you a warning and basically saying, oh, the ODF format is better than the docx format. It's okay. In this case, we'll just keep current format, which means it's going to save it as a docx format. So it looks like everything is saved and should be okay, but it really is not saved because what it is saved to is called a RAM disk. A RAM disk is implemented using the RAM or random access memory of your computer, which is volatile. Volatile means if you turn off the computer, all the content will be gone. So that means at this point, it seems like I have saved the file to letter to grandma, but I really have not saved it. As soon as I reset the computer, I don't even have to power down the computer. I just have to reset or reboot the computer, and that document will be gone. That's not very useful, is it? So in the next demonstration, I'll show you how you can add a persistent drive. Now, if you want to avoid that step, the easiest way to save a document is to plug in a USB thumb drive. If you plug in a USB thumb drive, I cannot emulate it here using the emulator. Well, not easily. I can emulate it later. If you want to do that, you will find the icon appearing here. You can double click on the icon, and that will allow you to access the USB thumb drive, and you can save anything on your USB thumb drive just like what you can do in Windows. So that's a quick and easy way to save documents, but it certainly is not it's not intuitive because the default path to save files is on the RAM disk and it is volatile. Alright, so in the next segment, I will show you what you can do in order to save your file, because it really is kind of a hassle that you have to at least reset up all the configuration and whatnot with your applications. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you will enjoy the next episode of this series.